Welcome to today's episode. I'm joined by Nataraj Chaitanya, and we are talking about yoga philosophy. So if you haven't listened to Nataraj's previous episodes, I highly recommend pausing this and going back and listening to the first two because they were fantastic. So he's back today. Nataraj teaches at our Mornington studio. You teach on our teacher training.
Yes.
And we are thrilled to have you back.
It's so nice to be back on the pod.
Yes.
I've always wanted to say that. Friend of the pod, Nataraj Chaitanya.
Yeah, off camera we've had some very funny conversations. So let's see how this goes.
That's right. We're feeling wild.
We're in a fun mood. So something that we love about your classes is your added element of philosophy. The way you weave philosophy through the practice is just... So let's start with a little bit of yoga philosophy from a beginner's perspective.
Okay. So...
Good luck.
Yes. When you approach yoga philosophy, it's very easy to feel overwhelmed. And why is that? We're approaching the infinite. It's infinite. The path itself is infinite. And so yoga, taking that into consideration, it always starts us off with the big idea first. Yoga begins with big ideas. And so one of the ways that I introduce yoga philosophy in the teacher training is I ask everyone 3 questions that lead to inquiry. The first is, have I found what I'm looking for? The second...
In life?
Yeah. The second is it permanent? And the third is, am I with that thing or in a state of that thing always? And so this brings us to the point of yoga. Most of the time when we live an ordinary life, trying to manifest our dreams and fulfill our goals, the things that we want are physical outer world things. Anything in the outer world, it comes into creation, it sticks around for a little while and it goes away. And so inevitably that puts us in a cycle of joy. And then on the other end of that, there's suffering waiting to be realized because nothing sticks around forever. And so yoga philosophy says, well, why can't we source our life from something permanent? What's the thing that's permanent? Can we align ourselves with that? Can we feel ourselves as that? Can we see that as the core ingredient behind everything? And then can we be in relationship or one with that, yoked to it, one, joined to it? And that brings us to the point of yoga philosophy. And so that's a big thing. We're asking a question that's taking us on the journey from the finite to the infinite. And so right away, it's like whiplash, Yoga starts with a big idea first. And then in any text, a sutra text, the source texts of yoga and its, sister philosophies, they're always going to present ideas about absolute reality or the infinite first. And then if you don't understand, then the philosophy out of its compassion gives you more tangible action items. And eventually, in the middle of a text, usually, it'll bring about the portion on practice. And so usually it starts with view teachings, which are, it's the philosophy itself. So basically, if we're going to get in a boat, and we're going to get in the boat in New York, and we want to go to Bermuda, the boat has to go a certain direction. It doesn't matter if you have the nicest boat, the most well-trained staff, the latest technology. If the boat's going in the wrong direction, you're not going to get to Bermuda.
Right.
So yoga corrects our view, our philosophical lens. It orients us in the right direction. And then it says, okay, now go on the journey. And then these are the things that you can do to get from point A to point B. And one of the kind of unique paradoxes about the yoga practice is that what we're after is not an acquisition, it's a realization, it's a recognition, it's a remembrance of what we really are. And it's not something that we have to get, it's something that we have to remember or feel inside of ourselves. And so all the yogic practices are in service of that recognizing life or recognizing the divine or remembering who we are, remembering the infinite. And so, by the time someone is interested in yoga and they start to come to a yoga philosophy, usually the ideas that people are presented with, the things that they'll know maybe from their yoga teacher in a regular class setting is they'll have heard about Ashtanga yoga, Patanjali's Ashtanga yoga, or the yamas and niyamas. Those are easy things to talk about in a yoga class because they deal directly with practice, but it's actually not where you should begin in formal study of philosophy. Right. You actually need the big ideas to blow your mind. And the idea is, if you can get the big ideas right off the bat, the rest of the practice isn't necessary, or you could do just because you like it.
Right.
Just for the pure bliss of doing it. So the yamas and the niyamas, a lot of people will bring their old ideas from their upbringing into yoga. Sometimes we hear the yamas and niyamas are like the 10 commandments of yoga. This is actually not a good idea to bring into the yamas and niyamas. If you're just excited about your yogic life and this practice is creating some kind of awakening inside of you, you could very well short out or shortchange your awakening because you've imported all of these like weird rules and moralistic, dualistic stuff of like good and bad and pure and impure and right and wrong and us and them on yoga. And all the philosophy that comes before that is supposed to correct that kind of thinking. It's not about good and bad and us and them and reward and punishment and like a puritanical Judeo-Christian way. This philosophy says there's only one thing and we're all it. And we're trying to use our behavior and our practices that are conducive to remembering that. So if you don't have the right view before you take up all of this idea of like, I'm going to be a yamas and niyamas yogi, like you could actually get lost on the way.
Totally. And I assume that a lot of teachers theme their classes around yamas or niyamas or weave them through because it is simplistic in a way to introduce in a 1 hour format. But ironically, that's how most people come into contact with philosophy at their first touch point of yoga, which is in a class format, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Nobody goes, I like yoga, I'm going to do a 200-hour teacher training without doing a set of classes or a period of time of classes, right?
Yeah, of course.
So they're actually diving, what you're saying is they're learning things that they're meant to learn way down the path quite soon.
Yeah. Look, it's not necessarily a problem because we'll straighten you out in the program. I'll start with the big idea first.
Yeah.
And it does give a lot of people like cognitive whiplash at first. It definitely, we blow minds in the teacher training all the time.
Yes.
The point of all of this wisdom is it's supposed to give you a paradigm shift. You know what I mean? And you're not going to be able to do that if you're attached to all of your old modes of thinking and feeling and operating in the world, which brings us to the point of practice. Yeah. So it's great, do practice, come to class, get what you get from it, but also the spectrum of philosophy is so vast. And when we start to approach the source material of yoga, you're going to feel overwhelmed. There's a great Indian saint, Sai Baba of Shirdi, and this is probably the thing that most people remember from the teacher training, but he said that the two things that brought success in yoga were Shraddha and Saburi. Shraddha means faith, and Saburi means patience. And so we're approaching the infinite. The path is infinite. The infinite itself is infinite. You have to have faith in the journey. And because the path is infinite, it's going to take a long time. So we're being asked to cultivate a kind of forbearance or patience along the way. And oftentimes when you're in moments of tension, when you have to take up practice, you could always ask yourself, is life asking me in this moment to cultivate more faith or more patience? The idea is that we're trying to keep the philosophical lens of yoga in front of us at all times, which is the big picture.
Yes.
That there's something big going on here, and it's mysterious, and it's lovely, and it's filled with humor and joy and bliss and compassion and all the fuzzy, warm stuff. But, faith and patience are key, especially because you're entering into a spiritual, philosophical, and cultural system that is rich and nuanced and very well written about throughout the ages. It's an enduring philosophy for a reason. So there's a lot to be said for it.
So when you talk about those 3 questions you ask the teacher trainees on the training, is that something they have to write down and reflect on or answer out loud?
The idea is, we talk about it out loud, and it gets people to start to contemplate what's a higher value, or what do I believe is eternal, Or what do I believe endures? Or what's life really all about? It's,
Just the easy questions of
the
life.
easy, right up front, big picture first. So we're doing that because the promise of yoga is to be able to answer yes to all three. You've found what you're looking for, so that means you're satiated. You don't have to keep running here and there like a beggar trying to amass more stuff or more approval or more affection. I've got it. And what do you have? Does it last forever? Yes. It's the divine, it's the sacred, it's the self, it's consciousness, it's energy. All words are the same thing. And I'm with that thing. I'm in a loving relationship. I'm one with it. It can't be taken from me. That's the goal of all the yogic stuff. So if you can say yes to all three, the course is actually unnecessary. You don't need to take the 200-hour unless you just really want to be there to like hang out and teach me, But the idea is eventually what we're moving towards is this ability to say, yes, I found what I'm looking for. It's permanent. And I'm with that thing. I can source my life from that all the time.
So after the big picture concepts, and you start, like you said, with the big picture first, what do you unlock on the teacher training? What are some of the philosophy principles that you cover?
So
in a nutshell.
The two texts that we do talk about key concepts in. Now, we don't do a rigorous study of both of these books. To get through, some people classically were just given one sutra, one aphorism or phrase to study their whole lives. That's their whole practice. You could take one sutra and study it your whole life. Wow. We talk about key concepts and key sutras from the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, which through a very funny historical turn of events has become like the text studied in yoga, even though it shouldn't be. It's a text for renunciates. It's a text for people who want to leave society and experience the state of kaivalya, which is supreme aloneness. So there's a whole soapbox I get into, but we can take what we can get out of it, and it has a lot of great lessons for us anyway. But it teaches us the art of samadhi. Samadhi is deep meditative oneness. It comes from the Sanskrit word samma, which means same, and adhi, which means the highest. So there's a consciousness state that you can achieve through yogic practice where there's an equal sign between you and your highest value. You and God, you and grace, love, consciousness, the universe, whatever. So there are practices that can get us there. There's meditative techniques, the use of mantra. Then it talks about ways that also might be conducive to getting into samadhi states. Things like pranayama, working with the breath, or pratyahara, the withdrawal of the senses. How do we deal with the whirling of our mind, our own psychology? Well, we should try and direct the mind towards uplifting stuff. We should try and make the mind one-pointed. And the key system of practice that I teach in the philosophy component is what opens up the sadhana pada of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. So in this scripture that describes the practice of yoga, when we finally get to the practices, like way towards the middle and end of sadhana pada, there's the yamas and niyamas and the Ashtanga yogas, the eightfold path that most people know. But before that, it gives you a more refined technique. And that's what I teach, which is called Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is the yoga of action. And it means basically if you're in a state of yoga, you just have to be in that state. Enjoy it. When you feel good, when you feel love, enjoy it. It's the love that you love with and it's inside of you, and just abide in that. When you're not in the state of yoga, you have to do some practice. You have to somehow shift the dial back into the state. And so Kriya Yoga says, do this in a skillful way. And it's a 3-stepped system. And it's tapas, swadhyaya, and ishvara pranidhanam. Tapas deals with self-discipline, or how we use life's hardships as vehicles for awakening. How do we train our mind, our body, our energy? Swadhyaya is about getting good ideas into the mind. Self-study is also classically repeating the mantra or studying the source material or chanting the scriptures or the sacred texts of the tradition, because it's uplifting, nourishing food for the mind. And Ishvara Pranidhanam is surrender to the highest, whatever your highest value is, Ishvara, God, grace, consciousness. And what Kriya Yoga does is it says, in any moment, can you control this? If yes, apply tapas. Okay, self-discipline, refine, elevate yourself through practice, do something. Work with the things you can control and bring your best to those. That's your body, your speech, your mind, your energy. If I can't control this, what should I do? Well, it's one for the faith basket. Surrender, let go. There's something big going on and I entrust my care to that. It's not my job to fix everyone, to teach everyone, to heal anyone. We're all doing our own sadhana. How do I tell the difference? Self-study. So it sounds a lot like the modern serenity prayer, you see. The wisdom to know the difference comes from the self-study. Is this mine to actually work on, or is this one for the surrender basket? And so we talk about how to use Kriya Yoga as a yogi for the rest of your life. How do we bring refinement? How do we bring surrender? And so we're building our capacity to let go and also our resilience to stay on the path, to do the practices, to show up for ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And even when you're talking, I'm thinking about, I guess, more modern development or self-development. And a lot of these people, it's like they've pulled it from that because it really quite closely relates.
I've taught yoga philosophy now for almost 20 years, and I've taught all kinds of people, but there's amazing parallels between cognitive behavioral therapy and yoga philosophy, between stoicism and yoga philosophy, the Landmark Forum and yoga philosophy. Like,
Landmark was something I was thinking about.
The parallels, it's eternal wisdom. And so the truth never changes. You know, it's always being made accessible to us because the universe is compassionate and wants us to grow. So life is going to find a way for these teachings to get in your hands. And because we have got forever to figure it out, you're going to figure it out. And so I try and create an environment in teacher training where we focus on the faith and the patience, you know, and we focus on really getting our heads around this beautiful system of Kriya Yoga from the Sadhana Pada Patanjali of self-discipline, self-study, and surrender, because those are the things that are really going to bring radical transformation to how you feel in your life every day. Not just when you're meditating, like that practice, that system will unveil incredible experiences in your own inner world. You'll blow your own mind.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. But it'll also help for you to relate to the outer world. And that's where the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita gives us beautiful ideas and practices on how do we engage with the outer world. So when you're moving inward in meditation, it's the time to be a Patanjali Yoga Sutra practitioner. When you deal with the world, that's the time to use the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. And it gives us ways to use our thoughts, our actions, and our love as ways to connect with our highest value. And so that's the essence of the Gita.
Yes. And we're so privileged to have you on the teacher training. Like your depth, your depth of knowledge is just amazing. And you can just recall this because you live it and breathe it, right?
Yes, it's been a long life of study.
Yes. So we've covered a few different powerful topics today. If people can take away one thing, if you just remember one thing from this podcast, what would it be?
Yeah, Shraddha and Sabori, faith and patience. In any moment, you can always, if you're in a moment where it feels like the shit's hitting the fan, like take a step back, drop inward. Like the outer world is wild and crazy and unpredictable. There is a belief in this yoga tradition that you can source your life from your own wisdom, from your own divinity, from your own strength. So turning inward, you can always be in dialogue with inner consciousness, with the inner self. And just ask yourself, is this moment asking me to cultivate faith? Either faith in something larger than my own self-concern.
Yeah, I was gonna question you on the word faith because I'm not sure if everybody resonates with that word because it has a little bit of an attachment to religion.
Yeah.
So what would be another word for faith?
Faith is that there's something bigger going on than just you as you experience yourself now. It's a movement away from self-concern. It's connection with your highest value. It's whatever you hold in your heart. Shraddha, the word in Sanskrit, literally means that which is placed in the heart. What is enshrined in your heart?
So what resonates with you or your higher self?
Yeah. And the Bhagavad Gita goes as far as to say a person becomes what their Shraddha is. Whatever you have faith in, you'll become. And that brings a whole different level to the ideas of worship. You know, are you worshiping your problems? Or are you worshiping the love that you love with?
A lot of people worship their problems.
Yeah, because you continually meditate on your problems. The meditation is the inner worship of something.
Yeah.
So if you're just running your to-do list in your head all the time, or if you have, if when your mind wants, like, okay, if you want to know what you have faith in, if you want to know what like you are really devoted to, look at where your mind goes when it wanders. It'll show you what you really care about. And if it's your problems, if it's your cell phone, if it's, you know, what somebody said to you 3 days ago and you still have an argument going on with them in your head, it's the wrong thing. It's the wrong thing. Put something in your heart that you want to focus on all the time that puts you in touch with nectar, you know, that's like so uplifting. It can't help but raise the energy in the room. When someone's connected with their purpose, their faith, their highest value, when they walk into a room, they're luminous, they shine, they have a center of gravity. And life loves a lover. So that's what faith is, you know, like what has that kind of power for you?
Yeah.
Put your faith in that and like have confidence in that it's going to take care of you. It's going to help you to grow, that's what we're here to do, grow, you know, and then patience. You know, we've been practicing the way we are, how we show up today for a very long time. Whether you believe in reincarnation or not, whether you've been working on your habits, your thoughts, you're a certain pathology because you have well-rehearsed thoughts and feelings and tendencies. To untangle ourselves from the ways that we suffer, it's going to take time. We're building an inner momentum to counteract that, because it's like so easy to go on autopilot and just be like, you know, like, I hate that, you know, or to be negative, or to like
to
close
judge,
our heart, to judge, to beat ourselves up. Like if you've practiced that a lot, it has a lot of strength. So, you know, have some self-acceptance, have some compassion for yourself, patience. Like famously, Patabi Joy said, practice and all is coming. That's a great thing for the patience basket. So faith and patience. Is life asking you to cultivate faith in this moment or patience? Shraddha and Saburi.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So nice to be here, back on the pod.
On the potty.
Yeah.
Pod's better. Yeah. Thank you.